Hey guys, I'm here to talk about The Sword Defiant by Gareth Hanrahan. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I am terrible with names. So I knew nothing about this book other than who wrote it, and I picked it up because I'm a huge fan of the Gutter Prayer and that whole series. It's just very different. The characters were different, the prose were different, the voice was just very different. I mean, it starts out in the second person, and I was like, wait, what? Um, so I picked this one up only knowing the author, nothing about the book, and I think I was a little taken aback by how traditional fantasy this is. It's about elves and dwarves and all that kind of stuff, so it feels very familiar, and then it veers into its own thing because this is much darker. Um, it has a familiar feel to it just because of the species that are being used, or the races, I guess I should say. Um, but the lore is definitely onto its own, and it's extensive. One of my favorite parts about this book was honestly the info dumping, which is not something I ever say, but the way these were written, like different races would tell you their origin of the world stories, and it just opened up so much about their culture and how it affected that individual. And I just found it really super engaging, where usually I'm like, okay, all right, this is getting to be too much, I don't care, shut up. Way too much exposition. But this just flowed with the voice of the story, the tone, and it just worked. It just worked for me. um so, like I said, this is about elves and dwarves, and it's very classic epic fantasy. It's high stakes. So this follows a man named Elfric, and there are a couple different POVs. His sister is one of them, and that's one of the other things I really enjoyed. Is the two voices are of the same family, but they are so different, and both of them are written in a very sympathetic way, but the sister has very valid reasons to have hesitations about her hero brother. So Aelfric is a friend of the elves. The elves are immortal, and in this world, that has seriously fucked up consequences, right? There are like 8,000 some odd elven souls, and you can kill an elf body, but their soul continues, and they turn into wraiths, right? And they can turn into other weird fucked up shit like vampire elves. Um, so it's just, it took this very familiar lore and just twisted it into something totally different. And the more I read, the more I got into it, because at the beginning I was hesitant. The first like 15 to 20%, I was I'm not technically a huge reader of classic epic fantasy where you use elves and dwarves and that kind of thing. I occasionally enjoy that, like Michael J. Sullivan. I really enjoy his stuff. But typically, if you tell me elves, dwarves, magic, I'm not necessarily going to pick it up. I am so glad I got this because it is just a great twist on a classic familiar feel and made it completely its own thing. And I am just such a huge fan of that. So, Aelfric, this is based after they've won the war, right? These 9 heroes won the war, and they're trying to pick up the pieces after. This is like if Lord of the Rings continued after the burning of the Shire, right? So I also love that because that is not something you see very often, right? The aftermath, like how do you fix society? And it's difficult, and it's gray, and it's not black and white, and I love that kind of thing. So he finds himself at odds with his friends on how to proceed with tensions building, and it was just so well done. So anyway, I've been rambling for a bit. I know there's stuff I'm not. Oh, like I know there's stuff I'm missing. So the Sword Defiant, right? The fucking title and the cover. I didn't talk about the talking evil sword. So Aelfric is tied to this evil talking sword who just wants to go murder everybody. And I am always a fan of voices in your head, and like, I don't know why I like that so much. I guess because it's a foil, and I always like that kind of a relationship. Um, so he has an evil talking sword that plays a huge role throughout the book. I'm trying to think of anything else that I'm missing. So the sister's story I found was very compelling. Her son gets whisked off to war, and he ends up with some pretty shitty people, and she thinks he's in trouble. And she has an incredible journey of her own. And you don't typically see middle-aged moms going on adventures, and it was just great. And Her brother basically abandoned the family. He was trying to keep evil away from his family by not coming back home, but that was a mistake. And you can understand and sympathize with why his sister doesn't view him to be this great person, but rather someone who continuously lets her down. I just thought the relationships were great, the characters are great, the prose is great, the world was great. 5 out of 5, amazing. I may even pick this up in physical form, just put it on my shelf because I just love this book a lot. Anyway, thank you for watching.